Day 4 in Barcelona for this testing slash shakedown. And today was quite the interesting one. Decent amount of teams running. Some teams will be done with Barcelona after this day. And of course, the big headline around the team in green with Newey's new adventure, really, with the new team and car. But it's been quite the excitement around Barcelona, even with this being private, let's just call it that. I feel like more people are intrigued in the season because of it, kind of what's been hidden, what's not. And the excitement specifically around this team in green has been crazy. We'll go over a couple of things. But regardless, if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. You guys have been amazing. It's truly meant the world to me. But let's get started with this video. So the action on track today was Mercedes, Racing Bulls, Cadillac, Ferrari, McLaren, and Aston Martin. With it being Mercedes and Racing Bulls' third day, they're going to be wrapped up for this week of the preseason. Mercedes has been insanely impressive, I gotta say. Racing Bulls has put in a decent amount of laps as well. A lot of people are talking about Mercedes being that power unit that everybody's looking at. I definitely think people are kind of looking into this way too much. It's a lot of laps, it's good reliability, but every team is running some different program to really test out this power unit and the aero package they have. With that said, I still think it's extremely impressive. The reliability on the Mercedes powertrain has been ridiculous, both when you look at Alpine, McLaren, and then of course what George and Kimi have done has been insane as well. So they're definitely a team to look out for come this next Bahrain test, and they had quite the good Barcelona pretest. But funny enough, we talked about it yesterday. Alpine wasn't on track today, but something interesting that we saw in the car when it came to that cornering and straight line mode when the DRS is opening in the back and in the front, Alpine's doing it a little bit differently. Last video, we talked about Mercedes and the front wing, how they're doing it different, and they have their nose connected to the second flap. Well, for Alpine, they're actually putting pretty much the whole rear wing down rather than just opening a little slit of it. Sanchez developed an opposite solution to the other teams. The actuator located on the rear wing does not lift the leading edge of the two flaps, but instead lowers the trailing edge, which gives this car even more drag reduction, and this is quite the smart solution. I really think Alpine is a team to look out for. As for Mercedes, I still have to see the benefits of doing what they're doing. For Alpine, this makes sense, and I'm very interested to see how teams go about this. This type of development is cool to see. Even in the active aero department, how teams can switch it up both in the front and the back. But as I stated, the hype around Fernando Alonso driving this 2026 car, it's excitement. They even stopped him before getting into Barcelona, had a quick interview with him saying excitement, excitement. He says we need to temper expectations, work and we'll see. I'm happy to be back and start working. But insane the amount of people that were there trying to take pictures, trying to see what's going to happen, all over the hype. Fernando, I mean, it is in Spain, so that makes sense, but I love to see this. Something I don't love to see is this image getting plastered online and some reputable people retweeting it and talking about it. I mean, come on. This is obviously some AI, and people just get caught into it so easily. I mean, just look, there's not even a driver in the car. But it just shows you how much people were anticipating all day to see this car. We also got a report that Williams will be ready for Bahrain. James Vowles ended up coming and talking and really assessing the situation. They didn't want to miss Barcelona, but a couple of miscalculations put them back. They have a very strong power unit, clearly, with Mercedes, so at least they have that to look forward to. And they will be prepared for, of course, that new upcoming preseason test that I think is still going to be pretty limited in the footage. But with that, we can go over the team in green. And after all this time, we finally get a high resolution picture of the AMR26, and what a beauty. Now, this picture is in black and white, the one we're going to mainly go over. We're going to be using a couple others as well, but there is so much to see here from this very extremely designed car. Clearly, a lot of development has already been put into this car. This isn't just your basic A-spec like we've seen on the Cadillac and a couple of others. There's a lot of intricate details, especially around the engine cover. But from what we've seen on the front wing, it's pretty bulky in the nose. A couple of pictures that were taken by some people around the track show this being a pretty extreme design in its flaps. But the actual nose is pretty hefty. And I'm wondering if there is some weight that can be taken off from there. As we've seen on the McLaren car, that nose is super developed, super small, and passed the crash test, which is a big deal. Taking a look at that foot plate, he completely took off the strake on the top like we saw it on the McLaren. There's a very little detail there of some type of winglet, but I really wouldn't call it anything crazy. We've seen the same on the Mercedes and the Red Bull. And the bottom part of the foot plate seems pretty much intact as well. I think we're going to see a lot of development around this area on this AMR. Another key detail to note for the front wing is that they've followed the same design trend as Mercedes, putting the wing on the second flap. So it's going to open up that same way that we described in the last video. So only 2 teams have taken this design path. Looking at the suspension, there are different angles of this where it looks absolutely insane. And it seems like they've gone for the push rod. I know this is something that's been talked about a lot from different sources, that Adrian Newey put in a lot of time developing that front suspension. And some angles really do show this being a very extreme and highly developed suspension. Looking at the barge board, we see that 3-element design. And at least based off this picture alone, I don't really see that vertical piece we've seen on a couple of cars. Mercedes and Aston seem to have a very similar design in that part of the car. And then looking at the side pod inlet, now there are angles of this showing how skinny and small the actual inlet is itself. And as you can see, it's a big underbite and absolutely tiny, smaller than anybody's on the grid, and just looks radical in the way that it's made. And you can even see that those wing mirrors actually stay above it, and it's just the inlet itself, unlike the other cars that have brought that side pod up to the wing mirrors and even a little further. Now looking at the engine cover, we can see that triangle design we've seen on plenty of Ferrari cars. Now Aston brings it, and look at how slimmed out that Coke bottle shape is. It's pretty ridiculous. And we can see that big cooling gill that we've seen on different angles. Yet again, Soy Motor coming in with these crazy pictures. They were the first to get it. Make sure you guys go give them a follow on Twitter for everything that they've done during this preseason test. Outstanding. What a great news source. But from different angles, you can see how big that part of the cooling is. And clearly that's by design. But the way they've slimmed out that engine almost makes it seem like there's pretty much nothing there. And then there are certain angles on the rear wing where you can see a little design onto it. Still very hard to tell in that rear part of the car. But the side pod itself is big in its downwash. And as it gets to the Coke bottle shape, that inwashing flow towards the rear that we've seen on the Red Bull as well. And from different angles, the side pod actually does bulge out a decent amount, but it's because it has a drastic undercut going completely under the belly of the side pod. And like I said, going into that in-washing design. And as we can see here, there is a diffuser hole just slightly, you can see it, working with that undercut just like we've seen on the other teams as well. And while the car does look radical and awesome, they just barely got out and the car did end up stopping on track. So not the greatest sign, but from what I've heard, it wasn't a barbecue, so it wasn't something to do with the engine, maybe a sensor problem at most. Quite the exciting Barcelona pre-test, one more day where we'll round it all up talking about everything. Thank you all for stopping by. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.